This woman's house was always spotless, as she was very picky about cleaning. Everything had to be shiny and clean, and exaggeratedly, she kept the house fragrant and disinfected all the time. There was no rest, because for her, there was always dust here, dirt there, and that's why she had a cleaning product in her hands all the time. And one day, after having tidied up the whole house, her husband come home from work, but when he opens the door, his wife asks him to stop immediately where he was, because she didn't want him to enter the house with dirty feet. So, she told him to wait at the door, because she would get something so he could wipe his feet. He didn't understand why so much exaggeration. Then she came back with some papers and put them on the floor so he could step. And while she put the papers on the floor, he went through and listened to the complaints of his wife, who asked him never to enter the house with dirty feet again, because he knew how much dirt and bacteria he brought from the street. And after he managed to get in, she remained in the living room complaining about having been cleaning the house all day, while her husband came home bringing all the dirt he could from the street, and kept complaining and picking up the papers she had placed on the floor. Her mania for cleanliness was exaggerated, and every little detail made all the difference inside the house. She was constantly nervous about any remnants of dirt. A while later, while her husband was taking a shower, she was cleaning the bathroom, and when he was done, he began to shake his hair to remove the excess water, not caring about the floor getting wet. But when his wife noticed that, she gave a cry of despair, not believing that he was wetting all the floor that she had just cleaned, and he was startled by her reaction. And as if he were a child, she started to dry her husband's hair, saying that he didn't help at all, that he only knew how to interfere with her work at home, and very irritated, ordered him to get out of the bathroom. When she was alone, she began to regret what her husband had done, and immediately took a paper to dry the wet floor so that it returned to exactly as she had left it. Later, when she entered the kitchen and saw her husband eating, she despaired of the mess he had made on the counter, which was no big deal. He just couldn't answer, perplexed by his wife's exaggeration that only complain all day, and without waiting for him to finish eating, she started to clean everything again, saying that he looked like a child and that she wasn't her maid to do everything by herself. When he left, she tried to take his plate to wash, but he, already annoyed, says he would wash it himself, but she didn't let him, because she said he didn't do anything right, and that not even the glass he had washed was clean as it should. And then told him to go to his room, while she took care of the mess, which in her head, he had made. And she sat there complaining as usual and cleaning up what she thought was filthy and messy. Later, when she finally finishes cleaning, she gets out of the shower, and when her husband sees her, he comments how beautiful she was in that outfit, and asks her to lie down next to him. But she comments that she would even lie down to make love, but that first he would need to take a shower. He gets angry and says that he hadn't even showered for 2 hours, and she gets suspicious, but even so, she goes to bed with him so they can enjoy the night together. But when her husband gives her a kiss, she pushes him away asking if he hadn't brushed his teeth. To the husband's surprise, while she hides under the blanket, she takes something from the drawer next to bed, and then goes to him, who gets all excited thinking that he would finally receive affection from his wife. But he gets scared and screams when he realizes what she was really going to do. With an alcohol in hand, she says she was just preventing herself, but he gets up from the bed indignant with that attitude of his wife, and as he leaves the room, she tries to call him back, but he refuses, and she is left wondering what the problem would be with rubbing him alcohol. When she then realizes that he doesn't come back, she starts to put the bed back and to disinfect it, saying on her own that it was even better, that way they wouldn't dirty the bed and there wouldn't be anything else to clean. Next day, while cleaning the floor of her house, she noticed that something was happening to her hands, as she was feeling a very strong burning sensation and began to despair, as she did not know what to do. Her hands burned inside, and she cried desperately without having anyone around to help her, so she decides to pick up her cell phone to ask her best friend for help. And when she answers, she asked her to go to her house right away, because she needed to of her help, and told crying that her hands burned and she didn't know why. Without even being able to touch her cell phone properly, she sat on the floor waiting for her friend to arrive so she could help her. And a short time later, her friend arrives running wanting to know what had happened, and when she sees her friend's reddened hands, she is desperate, saying that she had asked her so much to stop that exaggerated cleaning and that she never listened to her. So she decides to take her to the hospital. And already in the hospital, her friend is worried because the husband was taking too long to arrive, but he finally arrives, desperate, wanting to know what had happened to his wife. Then she starts to say that she needed to help her friend who was alone at home with burnt hands, but he doesn't understand why. She then continues and comments about the problem her friend was experiencing after losing her job and having had to spend so much time indoors, and what was happening to her was something already common in her family. He then asks her to explain exactly what was going on with his wife. And then she says that according to the doctor, the wife had developed an obsessive-compulsive disorder. And he said that really she was very exaggerated, that unfortunately he could not realize what was really happening. Then her friend says that she called him because she knew that he loved her very much, and that at that moment, she was in need of people who really cared about her. He is very grateful that she called him and says he would go to his wife to support her. He then enters the hospital room, hugs his wife, and says he will be by her side no matter what. One of the most important qualities in a relationship is support, because if there is support between the two of you, together you will be able to face any difficulty.